Any final words, you miserable, worthless whore of a foal? You have beautiful eyes. Get every pony out of this room. Seal it off. Lock it down. No one goes in here unless I say they can. But, Miss Dash... Do as I say! Use the backup devices for now. The main theater room is to remain off limits to everyone. Miss Dash, what do you want us to do with the foal? Get out! Just leave me be. I'll deal with this meat sack. Yes, Miss Dash. Scootaloo. Why? How could you fail me like that? I'm telling you, Rainbow, we need more engineers. We can't continue to keep this facility up and running with the skeleton crew you've been providing us with. It'd be a damn shame to watch the entire new factory fall apart because you're too cheap to recruit me an employee or two. Come now, Hyde. What do you expect me to do? Toss an ad in the Cloudsdale Gazette? Wanted, engineer to help maintain full disembowelment machinery and other devices of mass murder for the purpose of manufacturing rainbows. Competitive benefits. Serious applicants only. We can't just hire anyone. For Celestia's sake, Rainbow. Have you ever looked at this building? 10 engineers cannot properly maintain 6 different floors of high-efficiency weather creation machinery. Not to mention, we still only keep the old factory from falling apart in order to keep the whole thing operational. Hyde, walk with me. Rainbow Dash rose from her seat, groaning slightly. The last 2 decades had been long and stressful from maintaining the Cloudsdale Weather Corporation. The company had flourished under her leadership, mostly thanks to her undying loyalty to Cloudsdale. She had managed to spread Pegasus-controlled weather far beyond Equestria's borders as well. Working under her was the best way to travel and see the world. Hyde followed his superior, sighing deeply as she led him out of the door. They stepped from her office into a cramped, dimly lit hallway. The walls were perfectly smooth, featureless clouds, broken only by the occasional door. Dash's efforts to control her tone of voice were very clear to the stallion, yet she remained calm as she spoke. 20 years ago, you operated this facility flawlessly, Hyde. What the Tartarus happened? How can you no longer do the job we pay you to do? Mind explaining this to me? Because 20 years ago I had 3 times the staff, and have now, and a facility that was 1/10 the size and complexity as this one. Ignoring the backup machines, we only had the one Pegasus device to keep running. Since then, most of my staff has been involved in industrial accidents, received disciplinary action, or simply gone insane. You're insane, Hyde. I'm insane. Yes, but we recognize that. So, on top of being reduced to my luckiest workers, we've got not 1, but 6 devices to keep running. These alone take all of your work hours to maintain. Hyde, take a look around. See what I've built? What do you see in this room? I see the Kevlar and steel fiber mixers. Yes, exactly. We developed these machines to infuse clouds with textiles, rendering them both completely solid and lighter than air. Construction companies across the globe buy out our stock of them. Heck, the whole Cloudsdale weather complex is even made out of them. What's your point, Rainbow? The mayor ignored the stallion, urging him to follow. Hyde sighed yet again and adjusted his white lab coat before following his supervisor. Look over there, Dash said, pointing with a dusty blue wing to a modern-looking cube, massive in relation to the workers next to it. Her coat had dulled over the years, and there was no trace of gray in her mane. Its once vivid coloration now lay flat and drained. What? One of the Pegasus devices? What's so special about that? Before the incident, it took several ponies' worth of livestock to extract 1 rainbow's worth of spectra. With your research team's engineering, we've managed to lower that average to 2 foals. Progress, Hyde. Progress. Speaking of progress, that reminds me. Later. Progress that was made by increasing efficiency and decreasing costs. Not by acting as if we have infinite money. Do you think we get those pitiful failures for free? I wasn't aware we were sent to flight school's purchase orders for the dysfunctional idiots, no. Bite your tongue. Bribes, payoffs. It takes a lot of bits to keep everything top secret. So, what do you want from me? Just one employee, Rainbow. That's all I ask for Buck's sake. One damned engineer. I suppose I could always promote one from the lower factory. Ah, thank Luna! Yes, please! Well then, follow me. If you really want an engineer that badly, then it's your decision as who gets to leave their families behind. Fair enough. The mare led the way, opening her eye wide by a panel by a large door. A series of electronic whistles went off as the door slid, hissed, and allowed access to the dark hallway beyond. In direct contrast to the fluorescent room they had left, both ponies were obscured in complete darkness. We're taking the long way, then. She sighed, becoming flustered. I'm not done making my point. I don't think you understand the importance of Cloudsdale anymore. I figure before I send you away for disciplinary action, I could at least try and help you myself. Hyde pursed his lips. She's questioning my loyalty to this facility. I practically built it from the ground up. But Dash does as Dash will do. Better keep quiet. Who knows, Hyde? Soon you may have to retire. And the easiest way to help, how valuable we are in Cloudsdale, is to pay attention to how we operate. Am I wrong? Of course not, Rainbow. Call me Miss Dash. I am your supervisor, whether you like it or not. Of course, Miss Dash. She reached into a wall, unlocking a hidden door. The room beyond offered minimal light, just enough not to lose your footing. The two padded in, closing the door behind them. You should be able to tell me what's in here. A Class 2 Pegasus device, 2nd edition, serial number 88 Alpha Tango. Good. Good. What's it doing, Hyde? It's currently in operation, working at a core temperature of 70 degrees Celsius, breaking down input resources at an efficiency rate of 3 units of spectra per unit of livestock. Cut the technical jargon, Hyde. Is making rainbows. Exactly. But since you're clearly avoiding the subject, allow me to describe to you what the machine is doing. Good timing, too, as we've just finished with its latest failure. Dash cleared her throat, observing the humming machine as it settled. After a moment, she whispered to the stallion next to her, smiling deviously. The process starts, as most factory productions go. A unit of raw resources is placed into a feed that leads to the machine. 2 stallions, their muscled bodies threatening to tear out under their suits, hoisted a frail blue colt onto a conveyor belt. The colt was horrified, his hooves bent and tied at painful angles underneath him. He was forced to stare at the machine in front of him, forced to watch, unable to look away from the maw of the Pegasus device. The machine loads the raw resources onto its primary processing segment, breaking the material down into workable size. I'd paid close attention, watching the scene unflinchingly as an assembly of blades and hooks drew the colt into the Pegasus device. Lasers scanned the blue Pegasus, determining the locations of his appendages. With a whir, the massive blades adjusted and slammed down into the colt, severing all of his limbs. After processing the colt, it then feeds the resources into the secondary processing segment, where our top-secret technology disintegrates the flesh and extracts the spectra. Hyde nodded, struggling to hear Rainbow Dash over the warbling coming from the machine. The screaming became more fluid and bubbled up until finally there was nothing. The spectra is then pumped into our mixing department below, and I'm sure you understand what happens there. Yes, I'd sputtered, urging Dash along. That's all very nice, and I get it. Can we please just go get my engineer now, Miss Dash? All right, Rainbow sighed, rubbing her neck with a hoof. I really wish you'd put more effort into this, Hyde. You're a good friend to me, and I'd hate to have to lose you. Hyde punched a switch in the wall, and the cloud shifted to reveal a cramped elevator shaft. They walked in and stood on either side of the door. After a quick retina scan, the doors slowly slid shut, and the elevator shook violently, beginning its descent to the lower factory. You're a good friend to me, too, Dash. And believe me, I do love this job. I've loved the work ever since that wonderful, glorious first day I got to see the results of my hard work. The first rainbow in the sky, made with the first batches of failures I oversaw. I was terrified, back then, at what we were doing, but knowing how happy we were making Equestria and how safe we were keeping Cloudsdale, everything fell into place. Dash's eyes clouded with nostalgia, and she looked softly at the stallion. So you're not losing your edge? Heavens, no. It's just frustrating, Dash. Take a look out there. Things have changed since the renovations. Your upper factory, both the old and new, is obscured with a constant thunderhead. Competitive edge, I think, is how you sold that to the princesses. Instead of 2 floors with only 1 machine to maintain, you've given me 6 different floors of factory, with not only Pegasus devices, but cloud solidifiers, high-powered ice crystallizers, and not to mention the holding rooms for the failures that power most of the machines. Some days I wish I could just go back to the one main room theater and... Dash's happy expression dropped as absolute fear gripped her face. No. Stop. No pony shall ever go into that room unless I specifically request it. Why do you want to go there? Dash, calm down. That's not what I meant. I just... Dash? Hyde struck the rainbow-maned mare, causing her to stumble. Her bulging eyes relaxed, focusing on the stallion above her. She reached up, panting, and Hyde helped her back to her hooves. Aye. Thank you. Sorry. It's all right. Oh, while we have a minute. You said you remembered something about the device. One of my researchers handed me this letter, insisting that you read it. Your eyes only kind of thing. I'd reached into his lab coat, fishing out a crumpled note. He tossed it to Dash, and she caught it with a look of curiosity covering her face. She was quiet as she read, and Hyde focused on her expression. Dash's eyes popped out once again, her legs shaking as she continued to read. How long? How long has this been in development? Sorry? Don't play stupid with me, Hyde. You had to have read this already. How long has your team been working on this? Hyde was silent for a moment, carefully forming his next sentence. Dr. Test Tube was working on an entirely different project. The one you commissioned to see if there were any other resources we could gain from test failures. He was trying to determine if skin could be used in the cloud solidifiers, organic tissues used in the Kevlar. It was only last night, apparently, that he discovered we could extract spectra harmlessly, without any damage to the resources. Dash whispered, staring at the floor. For 20 years I've ran this company. I've seen friends and family pass by those doors, and onto those conveyor belts. And you mean to tell me that it was for nothing? Her voice rose to a shout. The whole incident could have been entirely avoided? Are you flocking kidding me? Dash, this technology did not exist until even last year. It's pointless to dwell in the past. Think of the future. No more need to murder fools. We could run it like a blood drive. For a better Cloudsdale. Just imagine it now. Stallions and mares and everyone will flock to us. Practically infinite resources. And we can charge them to donate. Who could resist the idea of becoming a part of a rainbow? Just imagine it, Dash. Just imagine. Hardly. Shut the program down. Have Dr. Test Tube sent to Equian Resources. I'd personally like to find out how many feathers he can have individually torn from his body before he passes out. And then perhaps we can see how well he can work without his forehooves. Just the hooves, mind you. I can't afford to outfit our facility with ramps. Dash, this is outrageous. What is wrong with you? This is a legitimate way to further the glory of Cloudsdale and the flock. Increase the value of the entire company, and stop the senseless killing we've done for millennia. Senseless? See, that's what has me worried about you. This isn't senseless. We're doing Cloudsdale a favor by removing those worthless to wear its name. That's what you seem to have forgotten, Hyde. Besides, how do you expect me to announce that? We'd have to let the whole world know what we've been doing. The company would be ruined. Celestia would kill us all. Well, maybe we do need to come clean. Start fresh. Since when did you get a conscience? No, Hyde. No is final. Do you understand me? The elevator shuddered to a stop and the doors swept open. The room ahead was the cavernous Rainbow mixing room. Rainbow sniffed deeply, enjoying her first breath of fresh air in months, while ignoring the awestruck workers in the room. Most had never seen the manager of the Cloudsdale Weather Corporation, even less ever expected to. An aura of fear gripped the room. To see someone from the upper factory normally meant someone in a body bag was coming down, or that they might vanish beyond the doors until they were released with the dead. The name, Miss Dash, Hyde seethed, is Dr. Atmosphere. I do have a degree, you know. Atmosphere pointed at a group of similarly clothed workers and shouted, "You there! Which of you is single and not dating at the moment?" 4 of the Pegasi bolted, leaving 2 mares to look around wildly for some sort of assistance. "All right, you!" Dr. Atmosphere pointed a dark red hoof at the first, a larger, light green mare. "How long have you worked for Cloudsdale Weather?" 4 years, sir." "You?" Atmosphere aimed at the second mare. She gulped, her pale blue body covering away from the imposing stallion. 6 months, sir." "Excellent. You, Greenie, come with me. You've just been promoted. Say your goodbyes and, as is the age-old saying..." Atmosphere trailed off, controlling his anger at Dash and clearing his throat. Saying? "Welcome, mules. Welcome to the Rainbow Factory." Atmosphere cackled, practically dragging the terrified mare with him back to the elevator. Dash was unable to hold back her trademark smirk, catching the eyes of the workers until the door to the elevator slammed shut. Cold gusts blasted against the side of the cabin and rocked the carriage violently. Cloudcover looked up, taking in her surroundings. She wasn't sure how exactly she had failed her flight exam. Something about closing her wings too soon? It didn't matter. All Cloud understood was that she was on her way to Cloudsdale, out of Equestria, and out of the lives and memories of all her friends and family. It wasn't fair. But what is fair, anyway? The dusty purple filly asked, trying to spot something anything of interest to make the flight less painful. All she could see were 4 other foals, each secluded and silent. Cloud immediately gave up on conversation. At first, they had been willing to try and talk the flight away, but it soon became apparent that they could find nothing to discuss except their shameful failures. Cloud ran a hoof through her short teal mane. Sighing, she slumped back against the cold wooden wall of their cage, aggressively sitting still and staring pointlessly at nothing. Who needs Cloudsdale anyways? She lied to herself. Who am I kidding? She thought. We all need Cloudsdale. Oh, Celestia, who deserves this? What have we done wrong? No, calm down, Cloud. This isn't the time to get all wishy-washy. Might as well enjoy the ride, I guess. Fuck me. She rubbed her hooves into her bright yellow eyes, pressing the sleep out of her. A glint of light caught her sight as thunder cracked around the foals. She jumped, her murmur echoing with the other foals. Following her fear, she turned towards the light source and noticed a split in the wood. After a quick check to make sure there was no one paying attention, the filly lay down and pressed her face against the wall. The sky outside was a maelstrom of tumbling clouds and flashes of thunder. The lightning shook her insides, threatening to suck the oxygen straight from her lungs. This is weird. Shouldn't we have passed this storm by now? It feels like we've been in it for hours. Maybe we're outside of Equestria now. We're in the few places Cloudsdale weather doesn't moderate the weather. That makes sense, I guess. Ship the failures to lands they refuse to sell to. A bolt of electricity snapped just a few feet from her muzzle, the shock wave blowing back the shrieking Cloud. Cloud! Cloud! For the love of Luna, stop screaming! A pale orange colt smacked the purple filly, pushing her back against the cabin floor. You hit me, Cornea, Cloudcover muttered, holding a hoof to her sore face. I'm sorry, Cloud. You know me, I always act before thinking. Thanks. I needed that. Listen, Cornea, I know we all got tired of talking about it, but I was sent to the carriage before you. How did you fall? What happened? The colt rubbed his neck, glancing down at his cutie mark. It was a golden horseshoe with wings, reminiscent of one of the gods of speed they learned about in equestrian mythology. I did everything too fast, as usual. And ponies used to say that I'd be useful to the flock with my speed. Who'd have thought I'd be unable to make sharp turns to fly through the hoops? I don't get it, Cloud. Why do we have to leave? You're the smart one, with all those journals you've worked on. I don't know. Just because I was the editor of our academy's newspaper doesn't mean I understand everything, Cornea. What's your best guess? Well, it's Cloudsdale, isn't it? Have you ever seen a Pegasus pony on the weather team that had a disability or was kind of mental? Can't say I have. Exactly. That's why we were sent away, I think. To preserve that perfect image. Understandably so, I guess. I wouldn't want to be part of a race like the unicorns or earth ponies. Flaws? We can't have flaws. But why not? Sorry? What's wrong with being equine? Ponies make mistakes. Cloud. All ponies do. Why does Cloudsdale get the final say as to which mistakes are intolerable signs of weakness? I don't know, Cornea. Frankly, I don't really care. You don't have the slightest idea? I doubt that. You think too much not to have an opinion. Opinions are worthless in the grand scheme of things. You've got nothing else to discuss. Fine. With all great things come great responsibility, right? You've heard that before, haven't you? Of course. Cornea nodded, laying down next to Cloudcover. Another burst of thunder shook them to the core, and the rain seemed to hammer even harder than before onto the roof above them. Ice-cold water drizzled into them through the holes in the wood, and they nestled close together, keeping warm. Good, the purple filly said, thinking back to the articles she had written on the subject back in flight school. Absent-mindedly, she started to look at her cutie mark, a pencil and a notepad, before continuing to speak. Cloudsdale prides itself on being the greatest of things, and naturally that comes with the greatest of responsibilities. Complete and total control of the entire weather system across not only Equestria, but now most of the world as well. The weather, in turn, affects ecosystems, which affects economies, which affect the entirety of our social construct we rely on to stay alive. In short, it's a pretty big deal. With such massive dues to pay to Equestria, Cloudsdale has to do whatever it takes. The consequences of failing such an enormous task would be worse than the consequences of whatever Cloudsdale has to do to succeed. So in comparison to a complete global meltdown, our exile is warranted. Make sense? You use a lot of large words. We need to be sent away from Cloudsdale to stay successful. Fair enough, Cornea sighed, dropping his head to the floor. After a moment of aching silence, he turned his eye to the split in the wood and looked outside. Defer to the flock. What are you mad about? Cloudcover rolled her eyes and sat back, trying her best to ignore the world around her. What's there to care about, really? Hey, I thought we were supposed to be leaving Equestria. We are. Why? Because I'm fairly certain that's Cloudsdale Weather Corporation down there. That's insane. Let me look. The journalist pushed her friend aside and peered into the storm. That can't be, she reeled, glaring at the unmistakable complex below. What the Tartars is going on? Hey, Cloud, aren't we in the no-fly zone? He's right, but nobody's been allowed this close to the corporation before. Not in the 2 decades it's existed. Cornea had managed to find another knot in the wood and stood next to Cloud, watching intently with her. Wow, look at that, above the old factory. The new addition, it's massive. Cloudcover couldn't pull herself away from the image presented to her. In the clearing of the storm was the ever-familiar old factory, the building which had stood in Cloudsdale's skyline for millennia. On top of it, however, lay the 6 new floors that had been built after a major malfunction in the secret machinery on the upper floor. The entire addition was obscured in a venium and horrible tempest, so dark as if it were sucked away at the light around it. It billowed and condensed slowly, practically dilapidated, a sleeping giant protecting its valuable golden eggs inside. The 2 foals watched with concern as the carriage swept them past the front end of the building. It was rare for anyone who didn't work inside Cloudsdale Weather to approach the facility, never mind going around behind it. This is unheard of. What are we doing here? The cabin shifted suddenly, further confusing the 2, plowing straight into the pitch-black smog, smothering every ounce of light. Left with nothing but their thoughts, the foals moved away from the walls and sat down with the rest of their terrified companions. Dr. Atmosphere began, dragging a chair back and placing himself in it. So, he said, facing the light green mare, who sat across a cold metallic table from her. The mare sat sweating in the bright artificial light of the tiny interview room. There was no scenery to distract herself, only glistening walls of cloud, the table, and the mischievously smiling stallion who stood between her and the door. So? She questioned, her voice timid and unsure. So? Dr. Atmosphere? Yes, indeed, that is exactly who I am. But seeing as we're going to be spending a lot of time together, feel free to call me Hyde. Now, Miss... He trailed, digging into his wrinkled lab coat. He pulled out a clipboard and set it down on the table, his movements practiced and precise. With a flick of a wing, he unfolded a pair of glasses and put them on. Miss Butterwing. Hyde looked up, cocking an eyebrow. What an unusual name. Gentle Butterwing. Please just call me Gentle. I hate my last name. Gentle. How quaint. Now, Gentle, what were your duties on the lower factory? Mechanical engineering, Dr. Atmos. Call me Atmosphere again, and I shall forever call you Butterwing. I like to reserve the usage of my formal title for dealing with pretty exam failures. Exam failures? I don't follow. Your duties, Gentle. Lower factory duties. Right. Sorry. Gentle rubbed the back of her neck, feeling a headache beginning. She took a moment to stretch her wings. What have I done with my life? Where am I? How did I even end up in this mess? The green Pegasus sighed deeply, then sat up straight and attempted to look the stallion in the eyes. Terror surged through Gentle's body. She could not place the source of her fright, yet she looked into Atmosphere's steely pupils. It came all the same. There was something about them, that sunken darkness, that reflected pure hate and decades of spite. Gentle shivered and looked down at the table. I was in the mechanical engineering section. My work included maintenance on the atomizers and piping them into the rainbow pools. I was also tasked last year with designing a more efficient cloud generator, but I finished that report a month ago. I'd leaned back, whistling. I thought your name was familiar. I read that report, Gentle. Excellent logic in placing the condensers alongside the intercooler. You'll be glad to know that report just recently passed approval by Miss Dash, and will be placed into effect next month. I had lifted his clipboard and scribbled a small note onto it, allowing himself a smile. Gentle held her excitement back at that news, afraid at what outburst of emotion, good or otherwise, could do to this interview. She straightened herself again, looking up from the table, still avoiding Hyde's gaze. Tell me, Gentle. Hyde stood, walking around the table and settling behind the green mare. Do you know anything about the upper factory? I know there's 2 sections, the old factory and the new one. Good. Very good. What else do you know? I know that the old factory is mostly a placeholder for material transportation systems from the new factory to the lower factory. The new factory is responsible for Spectra manufacturing, as well as research and development. Fantastic! Hyde laughed and patted Gentle on her back, before circling the table again to his seat. He stood next to it, focusing on the mare. But do you know what goes into Spectra, Gentle? No, sir. Well, you're going to find out, so congratulations! You're one of the few who gets to learn the main important of Spectra. Look at me, Gentle. It took every ounce of willpower to raise her head to Hyde's level, but Gentle did as told. The instant she did, the terror came flooding back, as if her very being was being drained into those soulless retinas. Spectra is a pigment in equian bodies, responsible for the colors of your fur and mane. It bonds with magic, keeping it fresh and allowing it to change and flow through a pony. That same magic bond is what a cutie mark comes from. Did you know that? Without it, we'd all be forever blank flanks. That's interesting. Now, surely by now you must have an idea of our resources, don't you? I have an idea. Please tell me, Gentle. I'm simply fascinated to hear what you have to say. Gentle shook in her seat, running a hoof through her pink mane as she failed to process everything she had just learned. Sweat dripped off her face, and she risked looking at the red stallion in front of her. There he sat, cold, unmoving, his calculating eyes apparently apathetic, yet focused in deep consideration at the same time. His hooves were pressed together, tapping patiently on the unforgiving steel table. The noise quickly growing louder and heightening the throbbing in her head. Tap, 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 tap. That's impossible, Gentle snapped, kicking herself back from the table. She clipped a hoof on the chair and fell, crashing to the floor. There's no way. Cloudsdale would have noticed. Celestia would have noticed all the missing ponies. Hyde was standing over Gentle, calmly lending a wing to help her up. The mare stared at the wing as if it were venomous, then shuffled back as Hyde spoke. Now, Miss Butterwing, he chuckled, his wing still extended. Who said anything about capturing innocent ponies? No. Celestia, we'd never consider such a thing. Clearly you're overthinking things. Gentle's ears drooped in shame, and she accepted the wing up, settling back into her chair as the doctor did the same. I'm sorry, she murmured. Anxious, but with all the secrecy and everything. A lot of workers who swear this place is haunted, even. So, then, if not innocent ponies? She hazarded a laugh, and felt relief wash over her as Hyde returned one. If not innocent ponies, then what is Spectra made out of? Guilty foals, Hyde guffawed, slapping the table. Gentle twitched. Gentle. Hello. Guilty of what? Failing their flight tests, of course. He can't be serious. He's saying this as if it should be obvious to me. You monsters! Oh, we're monsters, are we? Let me explain something, Gentle, and I do hope you'll listen carefully. Those pathetic excuses for Pegasi are the real villains. They threaten to destroy the very essence of Cloudsdale. With reputation comes power, Gentle. And power brings immortality. Reputation cannot exist while hopeless morons with lame wings buck around dropping anvils onto earth ponies. So if we can't maintain our reputation, we lose our immortality. But they're only children, for flock's sake. I can't be a part of this insanity. Hyde shook his head, shaking his head in condensation. Ah, Gentle, Gentle, Gentle. I was afraid you wouldn't quite understand it from Cloudsdale Weather's point of view. None of the new employees ever do. That's why we have an official policy around the very matter. I refuse. It's not that simple, darling. I do hope you pay close attention. The stallion leaned in close to Gentle from behind, his hot breath tickling her coat. All upper floor employees are entitled to a choice. If you choose to offer yourself up as volunteer to produce spectra, we'll allow one test failure to go free. They'll never know that they failed. They'll go on, unfortunately, to live a rich, fulfilling life at the cost of your own. It's a no-brainer, isn't it? Die, just to let the disgusting runt potentially taint our reputation? Hyde laughed heartedly, slapping Gentle on the back. Isn't that a riot? How can you make someone choose? Heartless bastards! If you refuse to decide, we take both your lives. Don't feel so bad. Very, very few have ever accepted this offer. As far as I can remember, in my entire career at Cloudsdale Weather, there hasn't been more than a handful. It is rather pointless, you know. We saved one yellow filly decades ago, and not 2 days after she passed her test, she plummeted to the earth and was never seen from again. He smiled with nostalgia. relishing the memory of that useless pony dropping from the sky like a horsefly. A little bit before then, we saved some cross-eyed Pegasus with an unhealthy obsession with bubbles. A year later, and she was knocked up by a royal guard and left to fend for herself on the ground. "Why are you telling me this?" Gentle cried, hiding her muzzle with her hooves. "Because I absolutely hate to see a fantastic engineer as yourself give herself up to some sack of manure so that they can squander a free life." "Well, if you put it that way." "Pretty convincing, isn't it?" As a tear flowed past her hoof and dropped onto the table, Gentle nodded. I refuse the offer. I'll accept the position." "Excellent!" Dr. Atmosphere closed his files and tucked it back into his coat with a flourish. "My office is just down the hall and to the right. Please find me when you're ready. Welcome to Cloudsdale's Weather Upper Factory. Gentle Butterwing. I'm sure you'll be just mad about our work and progress." The stallion beamed as brightly as possible as he closed the door to the office. Gentle only sobbed. "Remember that one that had a degenerative growth disorder?" "Yeah, that's the one bluish-pink rum from isn't it 3 years ago?" "That's right, boys. That was the one, all right. Boy, wasn't she a feisty one. All dancing around and..." "Someone get old Contrail to smack over there. He gone kooky again." One of the two other Pegasi reached across the damp and broken couch, smacked the sky-blue one named Contrail with a vicious hoof. The others broke into uproarious laughter as Contrail's hysterics dropped into a quiet and unending giggle. He twitched onto the floor, clenching at his sides. "Swear to Luna, I'm the only sane one in this crew." Sanity, pipe wrench. The Tartarus is that word supposed to mean? A dark orange Pegasus with an incredibly long blonde mane turned and questioned his supervisor. Pipe wrench was battleship gray. His cutie mark was a rusted nut and bolt. His already light coat was faded and scarred. The lines on his face mapped a long and stressful life. Pipe wrench seemed constantly trying to blink the sleep from his eyes, failing every time. Sighing, the stallion answered the other employee. "Means, Gage, at one point or another, all us held onto our minds as hard as y'all hold onto your crop." "Oh, calm yourself, Pipe. No need to get all upset about it. Hold on to our..." The two stallions around Contrail merely watched as he lapsed back into uncontrollable laughter. After a minute, Pipe Wrench blinked and looked up. "All I'm saying is that the joke about losing our sanity ain't no joke." "Joke?" Gage kicked Contrail in the temple, silencing the annoying cackle. "Damn shame his sense of humor is so broken." The orange Pegasus frowned. "He's the only one of us here who's qualified to fix the coffee machine." "I wouldn't trust the machine for my life, boy. Probably powered by the blood of unis, you know. I swear, my boy, this damn place flipped in shreds at beat, right?" Gage tilted his head slightly, unconsciously tapping the hoof onto the table in an incredibly rapid fashion. He and Pipe Wrench stared into each other's eyes for what could have been seconds, hours, days. They had no concept of time anymore. As Gage liked to put it, they invested so much effort in keeping the sun shining, they had no intention of ever enjoying it again. Eventually, the engineer broke the silence. "Say what?" "Factory. Kill ya, ain't careful." "Oh, yeah. For sure, Pipe. I've known that for years. Everyone here knows that." "What's your point?" Dunno. Wouldn't mind a cough, though. The door to the secluded break room burst open, flooding the cramped and dark area with the bright artificial light from the hallway. For the love of the flock, what is it with you and melodramatic squawks? Turn on the blasted lights. Cripes. Apology, Dr. Atmosphere. We weren't expecting you around so suddenly. Contrail was going to clean the place up a bit, but... Gage indicated, the blue stallion drooling on the ground. He's a bit preoccupied. Has he been taking the supplied medication? Of course not. Good. Only thing worse than a psychotic pony with a wrench in this building is a mentally hindered one. You three are bad enough on that level. I love you too, Doc. Another busted pipe, rainbow spewing out the wazoo. There'll be rainbows spewing out of your plot if you don't hurry up and learn to speak properly, pipe wrench. No, everything's fine. I'd like to introduce you to the latest employee of Cloudsdale Weather Upper Factory. Her name is Gentle. The light green mare shivered behind Dr. Atmosphere. She shook her head, hiding behind her pink mane. Oh, come now, Gentle. There's no need to fear these three. Except, perhaps... The doctor trailed, nudging the twitching blue pony on the ground with a hoof. Contrail. But don't worry about him. For what he lacks in rational thought, he makes up for in efficient work. Gage placed a hoof on Gentle's shoulder, leading her into the break room. Please, Gentle, relax. Have a sit on the couch. Mind the springs. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee beans and water? What's wrong with a coffee maker? It's the damnedest thing, Atmosphere interrupted, nestling into a broken recliner. One day, just up and quit. Every single one of us are incredibly qualified at figuring out mechanical and electrical problems without the slightest effort. Yet we can't get that flocking coffee maker to brew. It's blinking 12, Gentle noted. Thanks, darling. We were all aware of that. Now, is that the clock? Or the timer? What? Gage coughed. I have the same model at home. There's a countdown to brew feature. Someone tried to set it to brew in 12 hours and never hit start. Gage, pipe wrench, and Hyde all turned and stared intently at the tiny, little, white piece of plastic and metal that had eluded all their deductive skills. In the awkward silence of frustrated realization, Contrail burst awake, hysterical. Ah, you silly fillies. I said that. I was waiting for y'all to get it. Dr. Atmosphere twitched. 2 years, Contrail. 2 years. 2 years without coffee. I should tear your flesh asunder and feed you to timberwolves. But you won't, because I'm the only one who knows. How do... what was it? I'm the only one who knows how to do whatever it is? Maintain the Kevlar cloud mixer without shutting them down. What a riot. Gage is right. Give this stallion a raise. So, how do the, hours work? Is there a place for me to sleep? Gentle nestled back into the couch. She couldn't stop herself from laughing at Contrail. These freaks are totally off the rockers. But they seem nice. This is fun. How does this whole thing work? Pipe Wrench began to speak, but Gage cut him off, holding a hoof up to the scarred stallion. Save it, Pipe. Let someone who can talk explain it. Otherwise, you're just going to say it a million times and no one will leave enlightened. Gentle giggled and relaxed, finding herself comfortable in the cramped room. Oh, Celestia, what's happening? This shouldn't be this easy. Now, A Rainbow's Tale isn't quite as nice as the story you know of Sugar and Spice. She knows all about the Spectra Gauge. Skip that. Right. Sorry. I just remember that instructional video left over from the last manager. Anyways, basically, Gentle, we work on an on-call basis, which has pretty much been all the time lately. Food is provided. It is excellent, by the way. You have no idea. As well as mandatory break periods. Enforced by the same agency that makes sure Cloudsdale weather doesn't murder baby ponies who can fly. AKA, no one. So, get used to being tired. Thank Luna we have coffee now, though. You're immediately the best worker here. Here, here. Not only do I not often agree with you three, but yes. Congratulations, Gentle. You've proven yourself by making us all look like fools. I'm sorry. I'd burst into laughter, sliding down into the recliner. The chair's back snapped and the red engineer nearly flipped over, shaking in mirth. It's... Oh, Gentle, don't worry. I may make a snide comment or two, but I can never get rid of a great employee. Only Dash tends to do that. He sneered, looking away as abruptly as his sentence ended. The other stallions all shrunk down, avoiding eye contact with anything possible. Okay. Lesson 1. Don't mention the manager. Same as lower factory etiquette. Makes sense. Ah, cold. They still aren't saying anything. This is painful. Sleeping quarters? Gentle fed, faking a smile. Right. Sorry. There are private rooms provided for employees. Being an engineer, you're lucky. You get your own place to sleep. The guards and laborers have to bunk in what's pretty much a barracks. What's the room like? Cold, bare walls like the rest of this place, or any kind of amenities? The beds are comfy, Pipe murmured. Excellent soundproofing, I'd added. To be honest, Gentle, none of us really ever use our rooms. We've been too busy. When we hit a slowdown, we just usually sit around here telling dirty jokes and punching contrail. That might be why he can't stop laughing. The laughing is a heck of a lot better than when he used to cry. That was fun. I'd stay up all night just screaming and wailing and wallowing and sobbing and... Yes, much fun as we all had, Contrail. We're very glad that was a happy time for you. The best was the nightmares. Like the one where... Contrail. Sorry, Dr. Atmosphere. For a second, the blue Pegasus's giggles halted, and he only allowed himself to shiver. Betrayal? Yes, Pipe? How many failures did it take to make a rainbow? How many? All of them. You sure tell it like it is, Pipe. Gentle shrinked back into the couch, ignoring the spring's complaints. What happened to Contrail anyway? Hyde stood up from the broken recliner and walked towards the coffee maker. He spoke softly as he fumbled with the machine, his back towards the new employee. Same thing that will probably happen to any of us, just a lot sooner. Poor fellow didn't have it in him to handle the stress of the factory. Don't worry, darling. Gage sat next to Gentle, bringing a hoof around her shoulder and pushing her from the couch. It's not all death and machination around here. We do have a little fun, after all. How? Gentle frowned, brushing her pink mane from her eyes. How in Luna's name do you manage to have fun around here? Well, with resource processing, of course. Go on. A couple of decades ago, we had one Tartarosaurus incident. Ever since, we gotta make sure all the failures ain't getting messed up in the factory. So we check them out, watch talking and stuff. It's like a reality TV, you know? Do you guys ever actually work around here? Excellent point, Hyde barked. downing the coffee he had just brewed. "All of you ladies, show that stallion what we do around here. Start off with basic maintenance, then you can process the failures before finally explaining to Gentle how to keep the Pegasus devices up and running." "Aye, aye, Captain." "Shut it, Pipe, you're giving me a headache." Contrail zipped out of his seat, doing a loop-de-loop around the workers before bolting out of the door. Gentle could hear his laughter long after he vanished down the long, barren hallway. "He's a bit of a character." "I think he's faking it," the orange Pegasus whispered, shaking his mane back. "Hey, you mind tossing this hairnet on me? Safety measures and whatnot. I can do it, but it's a pain in the plot to have to lean against a wall to bunch my mane up." He rolled his eyes, offering a small bundle of netting to Gentle. "I suppose. Do I need one?" "Appreciate it," he mumbled, ducking his head as the mare folded his hair into the net. "Nah, you should be fine. Your mane isn't really that long at all. Really, it's long enough for a filly to grab a hold of it. So you'll need to tie it up." "What a strange requirement," Gentle mused, following Gage out of the break room. "Funny story." Shut down the entire old factory, bar the one backup device, and immediately commissioned the new expansion. The second we had some privacy from the construction workers, we were back to production of rainbows. Gage was leading Gentle through a series of short hallways. The bright lights and white cloud walls were far behind them now, as they explored the series of service stations that allowed Dr. Atmosphere and his crew to keep the new facility running. Gentle barely managed to keep up with the copper pony in front of her, tripping and clipping her head on various systems and of pipes and wires and valves. The metal conduits stretched endlessly, flowing in and out of each other in some sort of chaotic order that, despite the mare's years of experience, made little sense to her. Glimpses of various warning signs and safety stickers concerned her. What kind of weather production requires biologically hazardous materials? Warning? Extremely corrosive? Are we producing acid rain here? She kept her thoughts to herself, choosing instead to concentrate on staying behind Gage. The stallion was still speaking aloud, managing to expertly weave his way through the cramped corridor, his movements second nature. Gentle stubbed a hoof on yet another valve, tripped into the cold scaffold floor. A mysterious blue liquid started to spray violently from a pressure relief valve mere feet away from her. Gage turned, his eyes bulging as he quickly turned around, only to relax as he saw the mare was okay. "Watch your step, by the way. Liquid thunder is extremely dangerous," he commented nonchalantly, absent-mindedly kicking a different switch with the rear hoof. The neon blue fluid stopped flowing, the remains of the expelled thunder dripping through the floor to an unseen area below. One touch of that and your whole nervous system is permanently shot. Seen a lot of the best minds I've worked with die that way. "It's that lethal? And we just have pipes that spew it out randomly?" "It's not lethal, it paralyzes you. Have you ever seen what happens when you have a disabled Pegasus landing on clouds?" "No. What happens?" "They don't land." The stallion leaned forward, offering a hoof towards Gentle. "Where does down there lead anyways?" Gentle changed the subject as the stallion helped her up. "I've never seen any waste drop under Cloudsdale weather." "Haven't you been listening?" "Never mind, it's a lot to take in. Spilled fluids end up in the old factory where they're processed. Some of them, like the valuable or separable ones, are sent back up here to be used. The rest are usually sent either to power room or to the lower research and development department." "Wait, that sludge we were told to do something useful with? That was from your guys' accidents?" "Oh, right. That's where you were stationed. Did you guys ever do anything with that?" "Yeah. We ended up selling it to Saddle Arabia. Apparently, it has some sort of insulating properties. Nothing we haven't already developed a more efficient alternative for, but hey, it was cheap, you know?
Makes sense. One country's garbage is another's economic fix.
Gentle checked herself over and, confident that no part of her body was dissolving, began walking again. So what's your story, Gage? How does a smart stallion like you keep his mind around here?
By not trying to hold on to it. We're all crazy.
Really? And I don't mean just us workers.
Everyone. To be normal is to be non-existent. In a nutshell, he sighed, tilting his head down in thought. I suppose, as long as you embrace the death of your sanity, it never truly dies. Enjoy the ride to Tartarus. It's pleasant for a reason.
That's rather philosophical, I'd say.
Been thinking it for a long time. It's nice to finally have the chance to talk about it. What's your main here? Low-hanging wires.
The two shrunk their necks down, looking above themselves ominously, as if waiting for a cable to reach out and snap at them. Gage turned sharply, practically prancing up the small set of stairs that led to a door. His movements were so second nature to him. It's graceful, really. Every calculated step of his hooves, landing in the one spot he won't trip or bruise himself. The head is elsewhere, but his entire functions properly without it.
Something on your mind?
The copper pony held the door open wide for Gentle, waiting for her to follow him out of the back maintenance area. Oh, nothing. Just the corporation.
Boggles my mind too. After you.
The green mare hopped into a large room. Looking around, several dozen pillars of complex machinery lined the area, all connected to the floor by great steel tubes that hummed and throbbed softly. The tune of a solo in the factory's symphony. Gentle took her time walking amongst the objects, examining them with care. Pressure tanks received substance from the piping system on the ground, heating and concentrate. Wait, no, these are condensers. So whatever gas is in these tubes is condensed, and the liquid is sent. The engineer looked higher, following the complicated series of tubing and instrumentation. Sent to a turbine, as well as whatever is coming through the hoses on the roof. Presumably those are mixed before entering. What? That looks like an atomizer we use on the lower factory, only incredibly industrial. Tartarus. Just one of those could fill a theater house with fog.
Do you like it?
What is it?
Contrail's pride and joy, were he still able to remember it. This is what drove him over the edge, what caused his rebellion against delirium to backfire and strip him of every stable thought he's ever had. But he built it from scratch, the bastard. Smartest stallion I've ever had the pleasure of being laughed at by.
That's not reassuring at all.
Right, I'm sorry. I am. Tell you what. We have half an hour till processing begins. What do you want to know first?
Gentle sculpted a small seat out of the cloud floor. She flopped onto it, rubbing her eyes with her hooves. I want to know about you guys. You, Pipe Wrench, and Contrail. How did you get this job anyways? What's it been like doing what we, I suppose, do every day? And what, pray tell, are all these pillars for? Gage climbed into a large containment tank that had been resting by the controls. Laying down comfortably, he stretched all four hooves out with a yawn. He took a moment to stare around the dark room, almost 100 meters long, watching every pillar charge its mysterious sustenance. Contrail and I started a few months before the incident. Pipe Wrench and Atmosphere had already been around for the longest time. I don't know anything about Dr. Atmosphere, to be honest. He has a soft heart locked in a safe of bloodlust. Gentle nodded, vividly picturing that deep red stallion. His stern, unchanging expression filled her mind, every detail of the stallion's aged face locked in place. Even after such a short time with the doctor, Gentle could see his spiky white mane in high definition,
his gray stubble on his chin scratching her mind's eye. Yet despite the solid, unloving structure of Hyde atmosphere, Gentle couldn't help but feel like there was more to the stallion. He cares. About something. Or someone. As if he's simply forgotten how to express that. Pipe wrench. Oh, he's got a fascinating backstory. I don't think that's his real name. That's just why he talks so funny. There's two rumors that some of the old security guards used to tell. First one is that he did it to himself, which I find hard to believe. It's damn hard to swing a wrench into your mouth when you're holding it with your teeth. The second theory is that one of the older employees started seeing things. Ghosts or some crap like that. Beat the fertilizer out of old Pipe Wrench with his namesake before the guards managed to pull him off. What happened to the older employee? Same thing that happens to the rest of the loonies around here. Sent to the old factory to keep the self-sufficient fluid management system running. Yes. Gage continued, condescendingly, interrupting Gentle before she could get her question out. Yes, that is an entirely worthless use of resources. The ones who can still be trusted to not break anything are usually assigned to the power generation department. Wait, the power plant's in the old factory? That's an odd place. Word I'm told is that there's even crazier things that happen there than up here. I doubt it, though. Gage laughed heartedly, rolling onto his back to stare at the white roof. Problem is, a lot of ponies come up with crazy conspiracy stories because, hey, we're the living embodiment of evil, and we have, like, infinite money, right? Wrong. Totally wrong. Cloudsdale Weather Corporation is a business, albeit one that runs an entire collective, but it is still a business. Companies have budgets and limited income, and CWC is no different. Do we break the law? Well, duh. Do we commit vile acts against equinity? Yep, you bet. But that's hardly evil. Cloudsdale Weather Corporation does it as a service, not for fun. Discord screwed up a heck of a lot more than we've come close to. Chrysalis's forces caused millions of bits of damage over the course of a few hours. What about us? Life goes on, day after day. Cities don't crumble because of us. Cloudsdale exists because of and for the corporation. Gage, you're sounding a little bitter. Sorry. I'm not really. I'm just tired of people complaining about their jobs. And it's nice to have someone to vent to. I'm just here to work, you know. I didn't sign up because I wanted to help the system murder failures. I signed up because it was my duty to the flock to maintain the business that maintained us. You know, me too. Don't feel guilty, Gentle. In this world, it's work or die. Anyways. Gentle nodded again, lapsing into silence with Gage. So tell me, she continued, standing up from her seat. She started wandering aimlessly, vaguely inspecting all the various hoses and valves in the room. Tell you about what? Tell me about Contrail. Tell me about this. She lifted a hoof, indicating the mess of machinery and piping surrounding them. How'd it break him? What is it? Back during the renovations, Rainbow Dash created a task force designed to implement preventative measures to keep an incident from ever happening. Make an uprising impossible, rather than just try to squash one that's already started. Gentle shuddered. Something wrong? It's awkward, discussing how to contain children from fighting against their impending death. Children? Gage chuckled, and he slid down from the tank to walk beside the mare. Failures. Failures. Useless to Cloudsdale, the corporation, and the flock. The flight test is simple. You took it. You should know. He's right, actually. It's incredibly easy.
Screw up the flight exam would take extraordinary ineptitude.
I know you're thinking it too. So don't give me that stupid bit about think about the foals. They aren't ponies, they're resources. Gage spit, rolling his eyes. Any other objections to your job description? We might as well go through them all right now. The green Pegasus lapsed into silence, considering the words of her copper supervisor. Well?
No, I have no objections. It's weird. I can't back down on that. But you are right. At least they can make rainbows, right?
The stallion's face brightened up, childish glee emanating from his expression. Oh boy, they're more than rainbows. We've gotten creative up here. Rainbow Dash has done a fantastic job of increasing the efficiency of this facility. Every day brings changes that saves us money, increases output without increases input, and increasing the quality of our goods.
How does she do it?
She loves her job. Plain and simple. I have never, ever, Gage emphasized, stomping a hoof, seen a pony as dedicated, devoted, and loyal to the company as she is. That's all she's ever truly demanded of us. Honesty. As long as you're willing to sacrifice for Cloudsdale Weather Corporation as much as she is, you'll never be in her bad books.
Good to know. Contrail.
Gentle pressed, prodding Gage with a wingtip. She stopped next to a pillar, tracing one of the condensers with a hoof.
Stop stalling.
Sit down then and stop asking questions. We're running out of time, so I'm going to have to press through this. Gentle did as told, leaning back against the pillar. It was warm, vibrating just enough to make her back tingle. Relaxed from the massage, she lifted a leg and imitated zipping her muzzle shut. Satisfied, Gage continued. Dash's task force, comprised of Contrail, Atmosphere, and 3 other engineers who went mad during the construction, had outlined 3 distinct steps to prevent an incident. The first was a procedures manual that described in detail the handling of failures and how to identify potential troublemakers.
Is that what Dr. Atmosphere handed me?
Gage glared at Gentle.
Sorry. Continue.
Yes, it is. Basic logical stuff in there, but a lot of security guards were too thick to figure out on their own. Thanks to Dash, though, the first policy exists and explicitly states that a supervising pony cannot oversee the processing of someone he or she knows, and must be relieved by the highest ranking officer of no relation whatsoever to the resource. The second step was to have an emergency contingency plan set up in case a revolution does start. The factory's contingency plan is as follows. Kill the specific leaders of the uprising, and any leaders who show after the initial ones have been dealt with.
That's rather generic. If there's an uprising like the one with a filly, how do you guarantee you could contain those responsible?
I'm getting there. Step 3 was to ensure all resources could be neutralized before allowing them into the facility. Contrail was commissioned to fashion, by any means within the task force's budget, a system to mass-produce kill switches, or whatever you want to call them, in all new failures brought in. It would need to be something that could target an individual pony or a whole group of them, yet not be anything that would need to be salvaged before the failure was loaded into a Pegasus device. Now, Contrail is very smart. Very, very smart. No pony could match him when they came to knowledge about fluid mechanics and mechanical engineering, not even Dr. Atmosphere. Honestly, I think Atmosphere was afraid of Contrail taking his position. Not that it matters now. Sorry, off track. Dash threatened Contrail with something. I don't know. To be honest, it must have been bad. Contrail locked himself in this room with a case of paper and tools, and for a fortnight no pony heard anything from him. Then one day, almost exactly 2 weeks since he closed the door, there was laughter. Incredible laughter. It echoed through the halls, down every vent, and even, some say, it could be heard in the calamity of the cyclone room. What's the... Later, Contrail's door was bursted open, and the guards found him in his bed, shaking, clenching his limbs. His forelegs had bite marks on them, terrible bruises. Security managed to sedate him, at which point he started crying. That is a different story altogether, though. One I don't like talking about, and one that you don't need to hear. We've seen how he is now, so you know how he turned out. On the table in his room, however, lay a single blueprint. 2 rooms, one on top, with a resource receival bay on the one end, and the Rainbow Production Department on the other, and one large room underneath. Gage shook his head, smiling. The bastard. That brilliant bastard. He did it all right. He solved Dash's problem, sacrificing his sanity for the corporation. She let him get away with pretty much anything now. Can't say I blame her. It was fantastic thinking we hadn't seen since the days when the first Pegasus device was proposed. A combination of knockout gas and some weird hybrid of cyanide and tetrodotoxin. These pillars ensure a perfect mixture of the chemicals, every time, and dispense them at a perfect concentration. When a foal breathes in the fumes, which are pumped up from the pillars into the room above, they're temporarily knocked out. The toxin simultaneously infuses itself into the bloodstream, but it doesn't activate, like a time bomb. The failures are then revived, one by one, and checked for personality traits most likely to incite rebellion. Why revive them? Why not just leave them unconscious? Fear drives magic, which in turn stimulates spectra. You get more vibrant colors when they're fully conscious of their fate. Ah, so it's another efficiency and quality thing then? Exactly, now you're getting it. Anyways, if a failure tries to escape during processing, they'll pass through a machine that mists them with a catalyst for the poison, practically disabling the renegade resource immediately. There's dispensers for that chemical all around this plant, so even on the off chance they make it out of the processing room, we can stop them all via computer controls. How long does it last? Beg pardon? The toxin. How long does it last in their bloodstream? If it doesn't kill them immediately, that leads me to assume that it's something that can be worked out? Oh, Tataris, I don't know. A couple of days. Not that it matters. A failure would have to stay in between 2 dispensers, which leaves it in an enclosed, vulnerable location for that long anyways. The plan's foolproof. I've never underestimated the capacity of a fool to be foolish. 20 years of successful Rainbow production disagrees with you. Now, come on. We gotta get to work. Gage offered a hoof, helping the green mare up to all 4 legs, and led her to the computers at the front of the room. Now, don't worry about most of these buttons and switches. They're pretty much for maintenance, which, quite frankly, hasn't been done in a decade. We'll eventually figure out what Contrail's design practically cleaned itself up at the same time. 10 years of constant use and you're telling me it's still in pristine condition? If you want to suit up in full biohazard gear and disassemble every single pillar, one by one, to scrub them with what's essentially a glorified toothbrush, just let me know and I'll teach you how to shut this all down. Maybe next week. That's what I thought. Now, pay attention. You see this lever here? When that light, Gage pointed, leading Gentle's eye over to the mass of controls and switches, starts blinking, you want to... Corona stumbled into cloud cover, pushing her slightly to the side. Immediately, a massive stallion in a suit aimed a threatening cattle prod towards them. Watch it, Cloud Cover hissed, drawing a whimper from the colt. Stay in line, you useless punks. Or do we need more encouragement? The guard chuckled to himself, shifting the taser tied around his hooves. Cloud and Corona glanced behind themselves to momentarily stare at the filly in the back, seeing one of her forelegs dragging.
And you told me not to worry,
the light orange colt replied.
No, Corona, it's okay.
Probably just some good security to make sure we don't make it back.
No, maybe it's just slave labor.
Threatening to their slaves with electricity doesn't make a good business model to me.
We're going to die. Corona, please. I'm trying to concentrate. Reassuring.
The group of fools was herded into a fairly large, open, and clean room. The solid cloud walls barely decorated, save for a mezzanine on the far wall and remnants of an old rusted vent. Cloudcover grimaced as she examined the expansive metal tubing. Dozens of dents and scratches lined the grating.
Yes, reassuring. Hold on to that, I think we'll need it. Can't we just run? Why don't we just run? I think running's a nice idea. Look, there's a large door over there on the opposite side of the room. We could run there. It's not even guarded. Neither's the door we came in. Obviously, we're really bad at this whole kidnapping thing. Cornea. How about we just take off? Don't fly. They'd probably expect that. But if we were like to bolt out of here, we'd probably leap out of the back door before they could catch us. Corona. Heck, maybe we could get them to think we ran, then double back and rescue the other ponies.
The colt wiped his brow with a hoof, and quickly glanced at the other foal in the room.
On second thought, most of them look like they want to die, so scratch that. I wonder how else we could... Corona!
No talking! Stay still!
Sorry, Cloud. Well, what's your plan? Running? Oh, for the love of... No. I say we wait it out and see what actually happens. We need to stop panicking over imagined scenarios. Obviously, if we patiently wait for this to resolve itself, we won't need to make any silly commotion. Is this bad? Yes. Obviously. But they're not going to murder us. You're silly.
Their attention was suddenly stolen as two stallions entered on the balcony above. One of them was very stern-looking red pony. His lab coat was wrinkled and dirty, and his gray spiked-back mane was oddly familiar to the foals below. The second stallion was sky blue, and he spun around in the air. He stopped, upside down, hovering next to the red stallion.
Oh, can I this time hide? Can I? Can I? Can I? Please, please, please. I haven't got to do it in such a long time.
Hyde looked at the blue Pegasus over the top of the bottom and rolled his eyes. Hold your horses, Contrail. Wait for Pipe Wrench to get back. As if on cue, the gray-coated worker burst in through the side door, panting. It's done, Hyde. Got her all loosened and open. Excellent. Stop opening your mouth now. Pipe Wrench grunted, settling next to Hyde on his haunches. Dr. Atmosphere cleared his throat, and all the foals in the center of the room looked up at the menacing trio of workers. Cloudcover shuffled, trying to get comfortable as she watched. No matter how she sat down, she found herself irritated by the vibrating floor.
Hold on, when did that start?
Go ahead, Contrail. Contrail twitched violently and landed on the edge of the platform, rearing as an enormous cackle filled the room.
Welcome! Welcome! Welcome, mules, to the Rainbow Factory!
Still laughing, he took off again. The foals shrieked and shrieked, ducking from the mad stallion.
We should run. That sounds excellent. We're just playing games. We're nothing to them, remember? Toys? That's all. It's embarrassing, but let them have their fun, and we can probably leave.
Contrails, please, Hyde murmured, tapping a hoof. The crazy Pegasus sighed deeply and landed, closing his muzzle. The very act of doing so seemed to send him into violent shivers, and his eyes bulged as if they were trying to escape. The red pony adjusted his coat and walked forward, addressing the group below. Welcome, as you all heard, to the Rainbow Factory. I'm sure you're all very
What do you want with us? What are you monsters doing?
cried a colt next to Cloudcover. The red filly continued to shuffle, the vibrations in her hooves growing more intense by the minute. As I was saying, I'd seethed. I'm sure you're all very curious as to why you're here, and I would love to tell you. But, due to a policy change, I am not allowed. So instead, please, breathe very, very deeply. Oh, and by the way, my name is Dr. Atmosphere. Remember who did this to you? I know I sure will. Ending with a childish smile, Hyde turned around and left through an unseen door, followed quickly by Pipe Wrench and Contrail.
Breathe deeply?
Corona looked around, searching for some sort of visual cue on the doctor's cryptic words. Unfortunately, he found none. The cloud floor began to change color from its vibrant white to a dirty purple, and not long after, a similar colored haze began to lift up from it. Towards the back, a smaller foal collapsed, a low whine escaping her muzzle as she fell.
Corona? Cloud, if you have an idea, spit it out, please. Run.
The two made a false start, but stopped as a large stallion blocked the entrance to the only door in front of them. They turned, aiming for the entrance they came in. It, too, was blocked by another guard, his face obscured by a strange contraption filtering his breathing.
What now? The vent!
Given direction, the light orange colt had already made it to the rusted tube before Cloudcover could even start towards it.
Cornea, wait! It's no...
Cloud paused, her head spinning from the mysterious gas. She coughed violently, only to worsen her vertigo.
It's no use. Can't you see? Too many more have failed at this?
Corona swayed, blinking back the darkness from his eyes.
But I don't think...
He collapsed forward, leaning against the grating, hardly able to keep his eyes open. He reached up with a shaking hoof.
They tried unlatching it.
He clipped a hook on the access, and it crumbled underneath his weight, sucking him into the dark vent.
Corona!
Cloudcover dived forward, into her only escape, her vision failing as she slammed against the cold metal inside. Her last feelings, only a sharp metal rubbing against her. Falling, freezing air, rushing past her hooves, and then... nothing. Dr. Atmosphere! One of the several guards was panting, sweating profusely under her suit and mask. Her muzzle was frozen in apprehension as the doctor stared down at her. Despite being shorter than her, Hyde managed to make the guard feel tiny with his black and soulless eyes. Yes.
2 of the foals have escaped. They managed to make it out through one of the air exchange vents in the old factory. And there's no catalyst disruptors down there, so we haven't been able to terminate the rogue resources. What do you advise?
Dr. Atmosphere was silent. He turned away from the guard and allowed himself the slightest smile. Excellent, he muttered.
I'm sorry?
Inform Miss Dash. This was the scenario she'd been dreading the most, so I'm sure she'll already have thought up a plan. Now, if you'll excuse me, I believe I'll retire to my quarters to put on a old record. Perhaps some Trotsky.
Dash? Are you mad?
Yes. Now, hurry up. Your crew is the one responsible for the breakout, so I doubt Rainbow will much appreciate you taking your sweet time informing her. If you make it quick, she might even not discipline you. Doubtful, though.
Yes, sir, Dr. Atmosphere.
As the guard galloped away, the red Pegasus smiled again. That will teach that mad mare a thing or two about my loyalty to the company I worked for 3 decades for.